Good morning. I'm Sivapriya. Um, it's such an honor to be here, and it's such a pleasure to be in conversation with Professor Venkatachalapathy. I'm going to call him Chalapathy from now. We've been colleagues and friends for, I think, decades. Um, so I love this title, Chalapathy, Taking Tamil to the World. Made me think that actually Tamil is already in the world. It's been in the world, I think, a long time before any of us here were even born. But as Tamils, I think we feel an anxiety about taking Tamil to the world. And some of that anxiety is rooted in the fact that we revel and take delight in the language and literature, and we want to share it with the world. At least some of the impulse for my own work comes from there. So I want to ask you what it means for you to take Tamil into the world. But before you answer, I want to reframe the question. I was thinking about your work over the years, the work that we've done together, and to me, it seems that there are two streams that feed your work. One is you edit, you curate, you frame, and you introduce. That's one part of the work. And the second part is this great obsession with archival research and then synthesizing that and presenting your insights of that material. But let's come back to the impulse to edit and to curate. Is that one of the, is that the reason, or is that how you take Tamil into the world?
Vanakkam. It's a real pleasure to be in conversation with you, Sivapriya, because I think we have worked for 20 years, more than 20 years together, published 5 or 6 books together, and we have hopped from publisher to publisher. So I have followed you. So I think I've said you are my long-standing editor, but I hope you're not a long-suffering editor. Yes. So to come to, your question, I want to respond to 2 parts of it. First is, yes, Tamils have a feeling that, we have not got our due. We have great riches, cultural riches, literary riches, and a deep history that goes millennia. And we strongly feel, and it is not just a subjective perception, it's objectively also that we feel that we have not got our due. In what form that should take is a different matter altogether. Whether you should say Tamil was there 20,000 years ago, or it was born along with the sky and the stars and the Milky Way, that is a different matter altogether. So that is the first. And I think this, what has been happening in the last 2-3 years, the initiative taken by the government of Tamil Nadu, is it is actually addressing that really strongly felt emotionally. The idea is that emotional need should be fulfilled intellectually. So that is the task that we have at hand. Coming to the second part of what you asked me is, I started very early, after reading our usual Enid Blytons and Famous Fives and Sherlock Holmes. I started reading in Tamil and I became interested in history. And this is the other part of our own understanding of our own past, that the narratives that we present are not adequately documented, that the outside world does not take us seriously, largely because the narratives that we present are poorly documented. There's too much of hyperbole. So that is the other lacuna that we feel. So when I started, this was very much in the air. And as a young boy who was not yet trained in anything, I believed that, I would go about the task of putting together material. So that is how I began my intellectual career. I looked for material, new documents, went in search of them, and I put them together in volumes with the kind of exposure I had received through reading alone. I devised my own editorial apparatus for putting together these documents. The idea was that at some point, competent people would use this material to write. On that score, I would say that, I've been very disappointed. Few have actually used the material that I have put together. There are young students or young scholars here. I would actually say that just pick up any of the huge edited volumes that I have produced. Based on that, you could spin any number of stories. So since that particular desire on my part was not fulfilled, and as I matured into a student reading extensive, I started writing myself. And what I chose to write was, at the initial stages, I tried to introduce the non-Tamil audience to the riches of Tamil, and I took a very dubious route. In the 80s and 90s, I reveled in writing rejoinders. Now I am a little embarrassed about the rejoinders because rejoinders are unusually harsh. I can see Rajan Krishnan here. Even when you beat him up in the crossroads, he will refuse to get into polemics and try to argue with his interlocutors. I am not that mature, but still, after a point, I got sick of polemics. Polemics is meant only to showcase your own talent, brilliance, and your taste for blood. After a point, I stopped. I said, there's no point writing those. At a certain age, yes, you want to prove yourself. Then I started writing, and I chose very consciously whatever stories that interested me, what excited me, I wanted to communicate it outside. And I worked bilingually. I wrote in Tamil and then I wrote in English. Or sometimes I wrote in English and then wrote in Tamil. And consciously avoided translating. For me, a bilingual person should not actually translate. A bilingual person should rewrite. A bilingual or a trilingual person without a sense of the audience. You cannot write. That is my feeling. Because a translator does not have the luxury of thinking of the audience and rewriting, the translator has to translate. But in my own work, this is how I have gone about doing it. Whether it is the exciting story of A.K. Chettiar, which you published when you were in Orient Longman, the wonderful story, or the story of the Tamil Encyclopedia, just completely forgotten. I went to Avinash Lingam University to give that talk. Nobody in that university is aware of what Avinash Lingam did. And they don't seem to care. And in every instance, let us not even talk about these big stories of VOC's shipping company. What a grand project it was. What do we have to show for it? So in every instance, I look for an exciting topic, an exciting event or an exciting process, and I try to convey that in my writing, whether it is in Tamil or English.
Thank you. That gives us a broad sense of what you do. I would like to focus on your work with M.L. Thangappa, because I feel that's really special, and editors work on many books, but I have to say, like, those two books, Love Stands Alone and Red Lilies and Frightened Birds, were just completely pure joy to work on. Can you give us a little bit about that? Was very special work, and you practically, I think, made it happen. And it took there was only Ramanujan before that who was so famous, and of course George Hart, But this brought an Indian translator who lives in Tamil Nadu translating Sangam poetry in English. It was a very different kind of taking Tamil to the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I really do want to talk a lot about M.L. Thangappa. You know, for me, I think my life is well spent. If I had only done that work for Thangappa. Thangappa was a sui generis. He was a completely different personality he lived like a kind of a hermit. He lived a very internal life. I first met him in 1983. I was about 15 or 16. And his very close friend, my mentor, Tako, and then gave me this slim volume called Hues and Harmonies from an Ancient Land. It comes from the same impulse that we have great literary riches and this entire world is blind to this. We have to do something. And if you look at it, I don't want to talk ill of A.K. Ramanujan, because what A.K. Ramanujan did was it's an incredible kind of work. But if you see that his first book, The Interior Landscape, is a deeply flawed book. He kind of makes up for it in the subsequent volumes. But that was a breakthrough. So Thangappa's was, Thangappa would, I have mentioned this to you and will also return about it in the introduction to that translation. Thangappa would translate from memory. He did not need poems. He didn't need the original. Whether it was Yadumure Yarum Kelir or Yayum Yayum Yaragero, it was all in his mind. So he didn't need the text. So he would translate. That was the kind of command he had over the language and the text. So that also came with some, there was some downside to it. Sometimes, he would have missed a couple of lines. Sometimes he would have had his own reading of the text. So when I read this, I was completely floored. And I said, why does the world keep silent about this man? Why doesn't anybody read about it? So in those days, the English publishing world, even the Tamil publishing world, was very small. We did not even know how to send a manuscript. Now here let me let out a secret. In the 80s, 87, 88, I sat with him because he wouldn't do any of this spade work. He would just scribble translations on paper, or when he wrote letters, he was a very avid correspondent. He would keep writing letters. So whenever I felt low, what I would do was, I would write a letter to him in a very provocative manner, and then 3 days later you would get a big letter, and that would really inspire me. So this man would, we would send him some books, A.V. Subramanian's translation or somebody's translation. He would just read it, and then he said, this doesn't work. And he would just, the spur of the moment, type out a translation. I still remember, when A.V. Subramanian published a Muttulayaram translation called The Bangle and the Javelin. This Muttulayaram is just a 4-line poem, remember? A.V. Subramanian had translated it into 10, 12 lines. So Thangappa said, in his typical style, he said, இது என்ன தயிரை மோராக்கிட்டு இருக்காரு அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு, then he did a on the spot translation. That's how I caught on to him and said, you should do the whole translation. And he was always hesitant. So to cut a long story short, I pestered him, I disturbed him, I wrote to him, I sent a flurry of letters, and finally, after 15 years, I managed to get a manuscript out of him. I got it typed, yes, first instance. And in those days, the only English publisher around was Penguin. Penguin had just started, 87. David Devidar was a star at that time, and there was no competition. So I sent the manuscript to him. The manuscript was returned after a few months with his usual rejection slips, which one is very familiar with. And I also, sent samples to, I bought a book on the pavements of Delhi, which said how to publish a book. I picked it up and then read the processes, and then we spent a fortune sending mails to all the major publishers in the UK. Every time it just came back without any. So then, after 20 years, it became very clear to me that poetry doesn't, love stands alone, but poetry doesn't stand alone. Poetry in translation has to be framed in a certain manner. So by that time, by the early 2000s, I had become an academic, I had been writing, I was teaching. So I said, Thangappa was no good with writing introductions. He had no academic kind of inclinations at all. He said, why should you gild a lily? Literally he said, ஆப்பிளுக்கு எதுக்கு பெயிண்ட் அடிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு வாட்டி அவர் கேட்டார். So, but I said, actually in this world you have to gild a lily. So I said I would write an introduction and start pursuing it. And luckily that's when you took over as the Penguin Classics editor in Penguin. Meanwhile, I had returned to Qatar. And Qatar is, you send a proposal and it's like, after initial enthusiasm, you don't hear from them at all. So after so many disappointments, finally in 2007, when you took over, started working on it. And I think the response was beyond all imagination. You know that. A.K. Mehrotra, who read the manuscript, he said, who is this man? I've never heard of him. And here he comes up with a completely new, lively translation. So that was the response. And when he won the Sahitya Academy translation, I told my friends, I can write it on bond paper that there is not a single Tamil person in the jury. And when the list came out, yes, the 3 members of the jury, none of them was a Tamil. Our Supriya Chowdhury was one of the jury members. I wrote to her, said, I'm so thankful to you. She said, we have to be thankful to you. And that is one encomium I treasure. Yes. I have championed Thangappa. And I have to flip a Tamil proverb. When Thangappa said, you should share the royalty with me. I want to do it. I said, that is unacceptable. But I told him, there is a Tamil proverb which is meant to convey some kind of modesty. But I, once again, with my characteristic immodesty, I turned it over. Now, பூவும் நாரும் சம்பந்தமான அந்த பழமொழி என்னங்க? பூவோட சேர்ந்த நாரும் மனம் பெறும். பூவோட சேர்ந்த நாரும் மனம் பெறும். But I told him, yes, பூவோட சேர்ந்த நாரும் மனம் பெறும். But without the nar, the flowers would be all discrete flowers. So I have performed that task. I'm very happy. And then subsequently we followed it up with Muttolairam. Even though it was not a commercial success, I think it was a critical success. And after that, Thangappa was invited to so many volumes to contribute. So many subsequent anthologies invited him to contribute. So in that sense, I was very happy. My only regret is that by the time we made it, he was past 70. If only we had been younger, I had been younger, or I had been more mature and wise, I think Thangappa would have produced even more volumes. One Naladiyar, if anybody is interested, Naladiyar translation is almost ready. I have to do an introduction. And he gave me a free hand. And it was so lovely working with him. So that is the story of Thangappa.
Wonderful. So I think in some sense that was, I know you've done a lot of editing and curating material, Chalapathy, but that is, I think, the jewel in the crown, working on Thangappa's work. So I didn't know about the Nalladiyar. I'm glad to hear that. But there seems to be a shift that's happened in your own work. So from, over the years, we've talked and it's clear to me that you've done the editing, curating bit of it and this kind of obsessive archival work simultaneously. But now you've moved into writing your own books, right? Less of editing and more of, what you've gleaned, your own arguments, your own insights are being presented. And that's how it's been for, I think, the last few books. So you've actually shifted into a different kind of writing, and Swadeshi's team has been a success. Congratulations on that. Can you tell us, how did that shift happen? What was the leap? Though you may have you're a great one for legwork, and you did the legwork, but now you've moved to a different, part in the journey, a different point in your journey. How did that happen? What does it mean?
I find that, this collecting the works of past writers, putting together documents, it has actually opened new avenues. When I was working with Kalachudu, we started with Pudumai Pittan and G. Nagarajan. Subsequently, over the 20 years now, you see that more scholars are now doing that work. Once others start doing this work, I basically withdraw. I look for different things to do, and I think I've done my bit. I've collected, edited a fair amount of work. But ultimately, you have to write something based on it. So then when I started writing about it, I said, it needs to be interpreted. The documents don't speak for themselves on their own. So that was, and the search for documents was underpinned by my search for these big personalities, whether it was Vausi or Bharati or Pudumai Pittan. So the impulse was towards something bigger. And at some point I kind of gained confidence that I could write. That took a while to come. And then later it seemed as though that there was something intrinsically interesting and exciting about these narratives, that even with one's own limited skills, it could still be conveyed. So that is how, for instance, I picked up the story of copyright. So once again, you are involved in that book. That had a different trajectory. So I had kind of compartmentalized. I was in silos. When I wrote in Tamil, I wrote for a general audience. When I wrote in English, I wrote for academic audiences. It basically meant, 10, 20, 25 people at most read these journals. But then that is the time. You rode that wave, right? The boom in trade publishing in India, you rode that wave. So when that happened, it became clear that you could also write for a larger audience this academic work. You can convey that story. So one of the first works that I actually tried to do was the story of copyright, Subramanya Bharati's copyright. It had an interesting trajectory. First I wrote it as an academic paper. And then later I wrote a book in Tamil. So it was called Kavingyanum, Bharati Kavingyanum Kapurimayum. After it was done, Kannan, who published it in Tamil, he said, no, you should write this in English as well. That's when I got that idea. Sometimes a nudge or a poke can be very, very powerful. I have found that in my own life. So that nudge, that poke, I said I should write this, and I did it. And I wrote it at a very frenzied pace. The English version, believe it or not, I wrote it in 4 weeks. It's like a man possessed. And then most Tamil writers, they are all gifted writers, Saraswati Devi comes and writes on their tongue, and then they can write everything. They don't need editors or anything. But I need editors. A good editor can vastly improve my work. So I have been very lucky with editors, and I still remember the advice that you gave me when I submitted the manuscript to you. You said, Chalapati, the story starts in the third chapter. I said, I know that, but I have to set it up. So that is another big challenge for all Tamil writers, is that you cannot assume any knowledge on the part of your non-Tamil reader about matters. There are still people who think there is a language called Malayali. Okay? The amount of ignorance about Tamil Nadu is phenomenal. So our heroes are not like Tagore or Nehru or Gandhi or Patel. So everything you have to explain. So that takes up a lot of time, and the narrative slackens. It is a really difficult issue to face. Even now with the Swadeshi's team, some people are complaining they are full of names. Yes, I have read books set in England or America or China or Russia. We never complained. Suddenly Alexandrovich becomes Alyosha, and then Alyosha becomes Sasha. We don't blame Dostoevsky for it, or we don't blame the entire Russian people for that. But in the case of Tamil, what is this? Full of Pillais and Mudaliyars and Ayers. And as you know, the Chicago Manual of Style, even though it is our Bible, it doesn't work when it comes to Tamil names. If you follow the standard Chicago Manual of Style and drop all the first names, paragraphs will read like this. Iyer borrowed a book from Iyer and lent it to an Iyer, who read the book and gave it to a Iyer, who threw it into the dustbin. This is how the paragraph will read like. And I have to be very careful. I have fought with editors. I said, not only do I want a first name, I also want to use the initials. Subramanya Iyer and G. Subramanya Iyer. Subramanya Iyer cannot stand for G. Subramanya Iyer, because there is G. Subramanya Iyer and there is a equally distinguished S. Subramanya Iyer. There are many distinguished Subramanya Iyer. So I have to handle all these things. And the biggest, what annoys me and bugs me is that, the pressure is on us to, constantly be on the defensive. These are men who did. G. Subramanya Iyer was not very ordinary.
I saw that you had a note on names in.
Yes, I had to do it. G. Subramanya Iyer needs a biography. Even an average historian, average biographer will end up writing a great biography of G. Subramanya Iyer. That is how dramatic his life is. So you, on the one hand, you have riches. There are so many stories to tell. On the other hand, you don't have enough people to tell it, and there are not enough publishers who are interested. Without you, I don't think I would have been able to get Tangapa's translation, because it had been rejected so many times, including by David Davida, who is nominally Tamil, right? Okay, so this is a big challenge. So we need editors who are more sensitive, and editors and publishers who believe that the stories are not, Indian stories are not exhausted by Bengal and Punjab and UP. So this is, so what is your take on this? You have been on the other side. In your Thursday meetings, how do you sell a manuscript to your colleagues about some vague person who did some?
I have to say, there seems to be a lot of churn happening in publishing. Definitely things have changed. That wave is sort of on its way down for sure. It's very difficult now to pitch ideas. Interesting and solid non-fiction is still something that's easier to pitch and get a yes on. Fiction's become very difficult. Poetry is almost impossible unless, you run a Penguin Classics list. It's really quite difficult. Or you have to hide it under something and sell it as, this is an anthology of Indian literature across the ages or something like that. So it's become really difficult. I don't actually have a clear answer for this because especially feel like the sands are shifting. And it's been happening in the past few years, and I don't think anyone knows what's happening. That is my sense of it. At least with nonfiction, I think there's some ground. Though even that is increasingly being eaten up by trends that come and die very quickly, self-help, spiritual stuff, all of that. Yeah, so I don't have a clear answer. But I want to come back to, this will be my closing question for you. Come back to where we left it. So you begin with editing material, curating material, original material by other writers, and then you're writing your own books. We spoke about how biographies are necessary. Is that the next step? Is that where you're going? Is that part of you gain confidence to go from one bit to the other? That's because you're very meticulous. People just write whatever they want at the first attempt these days. What's next for you? What's in the works?
What is in the works? I don't have any new projects. I have not had any new projects for 40 years. The Amba is there. She saw me in the 84, 85. What I said I was interested then and working on, I am still working. I am still working on Vavusi. I am still working on Bharati. I am still working on Pudumai Pittan. I am still working on Periyar. So all these are, there are many irons in the fire. But the pandemic really shook me up. The pandemic made all of us feel very mortal. In 2020, I thought, the horizon was endless. You had decades and decades of work ahead of you. Now what I have done is I have stopped doing all primary research. Write with the stuff that you have collected. And there are pressing subjects to be written about. And they have to be completed. I think whether it is Chidambaram Pillai or Bharat. Can you imagine that? Forget G. Subramania here. Can you believe, or even Periyar? It's a long life, controversial life. People who hate him, people who adore him. But somebody as non-controversial as Subramania Bharati. Is there a halfway decent book on Bharati that you can recommend to somebody without feeling awkward? I'm terrified when I give a book, recommend a book on Bharati to a non-Tamil reader because they tell me, you are raving about this man? We can't make out that there is anything great in this man's writings. Because that is the genius of Bharati. His genius doesn't travel well in English, is one aspect. But we have not also tried to write well about him. Yes, such a dramatic life. Just to throw one little bit of information. 1908, when he flees to Pondicherry, it was possible that he considered leaving the shores of India and going off to Europe. These are the big gifts of history. If that had happened, there would have been no Subramania Bharati. Bharati would be there in only about 20-25 poems. Or to even carry the story forward, it was nearly 10 years after Bharati's death that all his writings became available. So even when he died, he was not recognized for what he was. So if you look at it very closely, these lives are all, full of, conundrums, riddles, unexplainable things. And these are rich material for the biographer and the historian. So in that sense, while I feel that, if I had been born in Bengal or in some other place, I would have had more opportunities. But then I would have had to compete with very big names. your Partha Chatterjees and Rudrangsha Mukherjees. At this point, I tell younger scholars, the only competition you have is me. It should give you great confidence and inspire you to write. There's so many stories. Even as an aside, this is where I would like to end my argument. I didn't write a book called Tamil Characters. It happened at various points because of the pressure on you to write, obituaries and other things. I had written some essays, and when Macmillan's Prasoon Chatterjee said, can you put together all these material? And so when I put together this material, it really amazed me that we don't have pen portraits of many of our contemporary personalities. MGR is completely forgotten. When I was growing up, MGR was such a towering figure. Now nobody remembers him, not even his party people. In 7-8 years' time, Jayalalitha has been forgotten. So there are so many colorful personalities. I can think of a wonderful biography of Thol Thirumavalavan. What a exciting life. So on the one hand, you have space. That is when I say space, not publishing space, but intellectual space for solid, well-researched biographies. Perhaps it cannot be that another kind of biographies that were written about Henry James, 10,000 pages and they have not even covered half his life. So you can have very detailed, rich biographies of big personalities, but we also can have generalized, sweeping, short, not potted biographies, short biographies of people who are, who are closer to us in time. If somebody can write a biography of Kannadasan, it would be controversial. I don't know what you would include, because you know what you can leave out. There will be so much that would have to be left out. But still, what can be included will be a fantastic story. That Kannadasan biography would, put a biography of Qazi Nazrul Islam to the sidelines. We completely eclipse such figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Chalapati. You didn't answer my question on what's next, but we'll leave it at that. Some mysteries should be let go.
Thank you so much, Siva.
Thank you, everyone.